Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make some cloches and we're going to make them just out of everyday items. And as you can see here, this is just the top to a little cheese thing. I don't even know what you call it. But it didn't come with that little wood base. So we're going to make our own base. And I'm just using this plate here, and I've cleaned it with alcohol to make sure there's nothing keeping my paint from sticking. And now I'm going to glue some little wooden feet on this. So I'm using E6000 here because it sticks really well to glass. One thing that I struggle with this E6000 is it does slide easily, so you just have to kind of watch that and make sure that it doesn't slide before it has time to adhere. But I'm just going to put 4 of these little wooden riser legs on here, and if you don't have riser legs, you could use wooden beads. You could use little wooden thread spools. You could cut a little section of a wooden spindle. There's just numerous ways that you can make these little feet. But I was able to buy these really cheap, and so I have plenty of these right now. And so I'm just going to set that aside and let that dry before I paint it, because I will be painting it. Now this, I know you guys see these at thrift stores all the time. And so I'm just going to make a cloche out of this, but it's going to be a cloche that's open on the top. So don't really know if you would call that a cloche, but anyway, that's what we're going to do with this. And I thought I would add to this little piece by putting a base on it. So I'm just going to use this little wooden candlestick as the base. And again, I've cleaned it with alcohol first to make sure that there's nothing keeping this from adhering. And I'm just going to glue this. And again, you need to really watch that you don't have any slippage. And so until this has, at least a half hour to an hour to dry, I would just check it periodically to make sure that it hasn't slid. I probably could have used the Titebond here or the Gorilla Glue, but I just was comfortable with the E6000 since I am using glass here. And here is another of the little cheese things with the base still on it. So I'm going to be using this big wooden spool here and creating a riser for this one. That way I'll have these little cloches at different levels. Now I've taken these little wooden feet off this little base because I'm not going to need those now. And then I'll just be gluing this to the top of this spool. Now here I am using the Titebond because I know that it will hold well with this, so I don't get that slippage with the Titebond, so I'm just using that on this one, but I am putting plenty of glue to make sure that it's really secure. Now it's easier for me to tell how to or where to put that to get it in the middle where it needs to be if I turn it upside down. Okay, this next little cloche is one of those little light covers, or actually candle holders. And so it already has the little handle on the top. And I found this little coaster that goes underneath it, and then I'm going to glue that to this little candlestick, and it's just a little silver plated candlestick. Now I used the E6000 here. It did not work because the bottom of this coaster is made from the cork board, and it just kept coming loose. So I would not recommend the E6000 here. I don't know. I would assume that the Titebond would work really well, but I'm not certain. But I do know that the E6000 did not work. I also found this next little base at the thrift store, and it just so happened that this little light cover fit perfectly down over that. So this is one of those that a light bulb goes into, or it goes over the light bulb. And so you have that big hole there in the top. Now here I'm using the E6000, and I'm gluing just a vintage glass knob on top. And I'm sure you guys see these at thrift stores all the time, and probably pass right by them, but they make the neatest little cloches. And then I looked up on this larger light cover, and I was really tickled to find it because I very rarely find the larger ones. And this is just a really good size for a cloche. And so I found a wooden disc, and I knew that I wanted to use it for a cloche. And it just so happened that this one fit on top of it. So anytime I find these little bases that I know I can use for a cloche, I pick them up. And like I said, anytime I find these globes, or I don't guess you call them globe, light covers, whatever they are, I pick those up also, as long as they're good and clear. I don't like any tinting to them, and I don't like any design on them. A lot of times they'll be etched, and that doesn't work well for a cloche. And this is just an old rusty doorknob, and I'm not going to paint it because I love the look of this rusty doorknob. And because the doorknob is rusty and dark, then I'm also going to leave that base dark, and I'm not going to have to do anything to this except glue this knob on. And again, I'm using the E6000 here, and then that cloche will be finished. And now I'm painting these other bases. And like I said, this was one that didn't glue well. So I kind of struggled with it to keep it together while I painted it. It should have been dry by now, but it just did not hold. So I'm going to have to go back later and glue this one on. But I'm just putting a coat of the mineral chalk paint from Waverly. And I'm not sponsored by anyone, but this is just the color. I like this mineral color from Waverly because I want to make these bases have like a concrete finish. And so once you paint this this mineral and just give it a couple of coats. Now I have clear coated my glass first to make this stick, because otherwise it wouldn't stick. But I use this mineral, and then I'll go back and use a white wax on it, and that'll make it look like a concrete finish. Now here I'm using this little base that I have glued onto this spool, and I'm just kind of building my decor inside this cloche. So this was one of the little flower pots that we worked on the other day in a video, and so I've just kind of got it laid down because the cloche is not going to be tall enough for it to be sitting. So I've just got it laid down, and now I'm just kind of placing some moss around it. Now the good thing about these cloches, especially given that they're small, is just very little decor inside is just enough. So I'm just kind of placing some of this moss all the way around. And I did cut a little piece of styrofoam and just lightly glued it behind that pot. And I thought I got footage of that, but I didn't. And now I'm just cutting some little short sprigs of flowers and just kind of sticking them down in that foam, and just to create a little bit of height behind that and give it somewhat of a backdrop. And once I get these little sprigs of flowers in here, then that's all this is going to need. Otherwise it would be too crowded. So that, like I said, that's the good thing about these little cloches, is it really doesn't take much at all to dress them up and give them a spring look. So and this is not limited to Easter. I would call this more of a spring decor. So it works for actually it would even work into summer. So that's the good thing about keeping these little cloches simple. And just that little bit just really adds a lot to this piece. And now it's ready to just put that little cover on, and then this one will be finished also. And now we'll move on to this, I guess it's a vase, and like I said, probably wouldn't be called a cloche at all, but it is a neat little way to display some of your spring decor. And the good thing about these is you can change these out, so even these cloches can be kept for the next holiday, and you just change what's inside. And all that I'm going to put inside this one is just a little makeshift nest, and I don't have to really form it because this little vase is going to kind of hold it all together. I'm putting a little lid in here because I am going to add a little bunny, and I wanted to lift that up. So once I add a few little eggs, then that's all this will need, and nothing is glued. So like I said, you can just kind of change it out with the seasons. And then this next one is just going to get a nest with some eggs in it because there's not a lot of room here, and so I'm just going to build a little nest there. And like I said, you just kind of have to do a makeshift nest. I added a little bit of glue here just to kind of keep it together somewhat. But like I said, all I'm going to be doing with this one is just gluing a few little eggs in this little makeshift nest. And then this will be the one with the large globe. And like I said, I'm just going to put that one little nest in there with a few eggs. And then it will be ready to put that little light cover on. And now I did feel like this one, because it was so tall, needed a little something extra. So I just made a little grungy looking hang tag on the top, and that was enough to dress it up. And then here is that mineral chalk paint here that I am just putting a coat of white wax on, and this is the Dixie Belle white wax, and so I just put a coat of that on and wipe it off. Now I did clear coat this ahead of time, because anytime that I've painted glass and then used a wax on it, it's very fragile as far as the paint tries to come off sometimes, so I like to clear coat that first. And I thought all this one needed was just this little bunny and then some moss around him, and I felt like that was enough for this piece. And this next one is the really small one, and so I'm just going to keep it very simple, and I've used the white wax over this chalk paint like I did the other one. But because this one is going to be a tiny little cloche, I'm just going to put a little bunny with a little bit of moss around him. So it's really hard to find these little bunnies that will fit in these little cloches like this. But I found a set of 3 of them at an estate sale. And this one, I've just painted that same mineral chalk paint and made him concrete also. And I'm just going to keep this one very simple. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that I've inspired you to get out and thrift. And when you're thrifting, look at things with an open mind, and just get creative. And the more you create, the more creative you'll get. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.